What's going on, everybody? I'm Johnny Brook from Crafted Workshop, back for episode number 40 of the Crafted Podcast. Podcast all about making stuff by hand, woodworking, metalworking, leather, electronics, and more. We put out new episodes every Thursday on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, pretty much everywhere podcasts are available. We also live stream every Wednesday night on our YouTube channel. You can just search for Crafted Podcast on YouTube, and it should come up first. We have a great time there. You can live chat with us, and we try to answer your questions if we can get to them. So we also have a website, craftedpodcast.com, and that's where all of our show notes for each episode lives. And we also are on social media at Crafted Podcast. So probably most active on Instagram, but Twitter and Facebook are all good platforms to get questions for us. So definitely give us a follow there. And also, if you really dig the show, leave us a rating on iTunes. A 5-star rating is super, super helpful. And last, we did start a Patreon page a couple months ago and have added a $250 goal. If we hit that goal, we will add an extra show every week, a weekend show. So you can check that out at patreon.com/craftedpodcast. We've got a lot of good support levels there, a weekly after show. Our top patron of the week is Make, Build, Modify, as always. And we have a couple new patrons, actually. We've got Steve House, Made by Laurent, Keith Decent. What's going on, Keith? Awesome to have you here. And the man, the legend, Mark Spagnolo himself. So that's pretty crazy, considering I think I said on Twitter that I think I learned like 68% of my woodworking knowledge from Mark. So cool to have him as the patron. So let me introduce my co-host. As always, I've got James Wright from Wood by Wright. What's going on, James?
Oh, so much is going on. Thank you for having me tonight.
And I've got Zach Herberholz from ZH Fabrications. What's going on, Zach?
Hey, how's it going?
Good, man. James, your intros are getting almost erotic. It's they've really gotten heavy the past couple shows, man. That's pretty funny. That is pretty funny. Cool. Well, what you guys been working on, James? You want to kick us off?
Yeah, I've been I didn't work on the bench that much this week, so that was kind of nice. The bench is actually functional now. I'm building things on it. And actually, I'm building other parts for the bench on the bench, which is kind of a meta.
Yeah, that's funny.
But I'm playing with I've never really experimented a lot with planing stops. I always clamped them in the vise for all the planing. So I'm making a couple different planing stops and playing with those. That has been kind of interesting. But the big thing has been the shop remodel. I've been trying to get all the things done in order to make the shop functional. I'm trying to get my office down in there, and so I'm doing a lot of construction. And I've had a lot of comments recently of, is that a DeWalt drill in the background of that video I see? I'm like, yeah, I left it in there. Sorry, I should have moved it.
Yeah, for home renovation, man, I think like getting the Resin bit out to like hang any kind of, whatever things that you would need to hang, that would that seems a little excessive.
Yeah, I draw the line wherever I'm creating a video or not, and so like I've put up a lot of the information that I'm doing for the actual shop renovation on the second channel, and so there you get to see me using a drill, and I think that's the only power tool I really use though. But I still get an occasional person chewing me out over there. Well, you really should have still done it with a brace and bit. I'm like, sorry.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I mean, there's no joy in hanging like French cleats with a brace and bit. Like that's insane.
I mean, I can do it, but if I'm not doing it for a video and I'm not doing it for the fun of working on it, then I want to build it. I'm doing it for the project as opposed to the experience.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
Yeah, the cool thing that I did was a carving, because I put up my whole back wall and I have all these slats and they're multicolored and I really like how it looks. The only problem is right in the middle of it is an outlet. It's like, I'm a hand tool guy and there's just this big outlet in the middle of the wall.
That's funny.
So I'm trying to find some way of covering it. And so yesterday I had this piece of walnut burl. It's about a foot in diameter, a 1/4 inch thick, just this small cookie of walnut burl that I decided to carve my logo into.
Yeah, so that looks awesome, man.
Cover it.
How is carving the burl? Because I imagine that has a lot of challenges because of the insane grain.
It's actually very easy. It's as smooth as walnut, and walnut is a really nice wood to carve.
Nice.
But because the grain is so interlocked and twisted, you're always going against the grain. You're always going with the grain. You're always going against the grain, and it doesn't really chip apart. It cuts smoothly in any direction.
Gotcha.
So it's
Not what I
fairly
expected.
reliable.
Yeah.
Very simple.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, the burl will usually be slightly harder than the regular wood, but walnut is such a fairly soft wood that it's fairly forgiving even in a burl.
Nice. That's awesome. That's awesome. Cool. You got, yeah, I guess that's it for you.
about it for me.
Zach, what about you, man?
Well, I'm a year older now.
Yes. Happy belated birthday, man.
Thanks. Yeah, it's
How old are you now?
I'm 33 years old.
Man, ancient.
Yeah, I know, right? I think what's funny is I've been saying I was 33 for like the past 6 months. It's like nothing really changed.
That's funny.
So, yeah, so that took up a day, and trying to think what I've been doing the last week. So yeah, I just finished up that desk that I've been building, the industrial one.
Yeah, dude.
I don't have any. I have a picture of it before I did the top on my Instagram. It's all like distressed red. I think it turned out really, really well on it. That was before I finished the top. So I just finished that yesterday and drug the thing into the house so that I have shop space to start on the next project. So that was yesterday. It was pretty much just.
Dude, how was moving that dang thing?
It's heavy.
Yeah.
I bet it's probably 250, 300 pounds would be my guess.
Oof, man.
So yeah,
That's brutal.
It's not the same weight as a good Rubo.
Yeah, seriously, man.
Yeah, probably. I mean, if you've seen pictures of it, you'd understand. It's
Oh, yeah.
a bunch of 3-inch C-channel steel, and but all in all, I'm really happy with the way it turned out. It's one of those projects that like I really kind of want to keep, but I would rather get paid for it, so I'm going to sell it. But so
make another one for yourself.
Maybe. I mean, I obviously don't plan on living here for too much longer. Hopefully, maybe a year or so. So I think once I get settled, I'll build one. It'd be an awesome like welding desk, like to do if I put like a chunk of steel on the top or something.
Oh, yeah. That thing would be a ridiculous welding table.
And it really didn't take that long to build. I know I've been working on it for a really long time, but I had so many hangups and delays due to like waiting on tools and
going everywhere.
Yeah, just like, I mean, I really could have knocked it out quick if it weren't for all the setbacks. So yeah, yesterday I got that in the house and then spent the rest of the day cleaning the shop to the best of my abilities. So it's the cleanest it's been for months. And today I was going to get started. I have to have this table done. I'm doing a dining table for somebody, and I have to have that done I think by like the 22nd. They're having like some party or something and they need the table by then. So so I went out today and I got 6x6 steel tubing, which doesn't sound very big. I mean,
that sounds huge to me. That sounds like massive structural steel.
It is. It's like, I mean, to put it in perspective, it looks like almost the size of somebody's head. Like that's
like that's big, enormous.
Around, and it's so I got a 24-foot. It cost me, and I get a deal on this stuff. I spent $230 for 24 feet of this stuff.
How thick is the wall?
I think it's 16 gauge. And it is so heavy. They cut it into 8-foot pieces, and they like pulled the forklift up to the back of the truck and then pushed them in the back of the truck. And so I drive home and I like go to grab it and like pull it out of the back of the truck, and nothing happened.
The truck rolls backwards.
Yeah, pretty much.
Seriously.
It's seriously. So I bet each chunk of that steel is probably 120 pounds, maybe 100 pounds.
What are you going to cut it with? Is I guess angle grinder, right? Because the throat on your saw probably doesn't cut 6x6.
And here's the tricky part. So it's like an X brace, cross brace leg.
Lots of angles.
So I have to cut that at like probably, I don't know, like 60 degrees or something like that.
Mm.
So there's no way I can cut it on any like convenient tool I have. So what I'm probably going to do is draw out the silhouette of the angle and cut it out on my plasma cutter.
Yeah.
So we'll see how close I can get it. I have a little bit of anxiety about that whole process, but I mean, I think even if it's a bit uneven, I'll just make a jig because I'm going to weld a plate on the bottom of it. So as long as I can have a jig that sits at the correct angle to the base, then I can weld the plates on and fill in any inconsistencies. So
it's going to be welded smooth.
Yeah. So it's really not that big of a deal, but I've never done anything like this before. So I have anxiety about, especially with the timeline and the 22nd, you know, that's a lot of time, but I think on the 10th, I'm going to Cincinnati for like 4 days. And then I get back from that and I have 2 days and then I'm going to Nashville for this DeWalt thing. So like that takes out, so I really only have like 6 days, 7 days working time to get this whole thing like out the door. So
what are you going to do for the top?
I don't know yet.
2x10s, baby. It's like the easiest top ever.
Yeah, I don't know. I really liked working with ash. That's what I did on the desk build, and that ended up being like quarter sawn, which was kind of neat. But
yeah,
I mean, I'm not worried about the top once they decide if they want like the rustic thing, and I just kind of do things one piece at a time. Like once I get started on the legs and that's underway, that'll take away the anxiety. Then I'll start thinking about what kind of top would look good on it. And then I'll send them a few things I have in my mind. And just because if I try and solve all of the problems right now before I get started, it's just going to take me longer. I just need to like dive in and chip away at it. So then I need to go to Fastenal and see if I can get like some 2.5 or 2 inch diameter steel rod that's like 5 feet long, which won't be cheap either.
That's going to be mega expensive, dude. That's I had to buy a bunch of that for not even close to that thick. It was like 3/4 all thread. I mean, I bought it at Lowe's, but man, that stuff was stupid expensive for that those set of coffee tables I built for my mom.
How long was the rod?
I think they sell them in 4-foot sections. So.
Do you know roughly how much that cost?
$30.
I think they were like $12 a pop at least.
Oh, that's not too bad. I figured I'll be in it like $100 for just the rods.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Nice.
We'll see what happens. So yeah, that's what I have coming up. Excited to get that underway, and it's been crazy, man. I've been like traveling so much. We had Oklahoma, and then I just got back from Jimmy DeResta's place, and then I got Cincinnati, and then Nashville. It's just it's crazy. It's hard to get a groove established. Like
traveling is just sucks the life out of you.
Yeah, and it's funny, when I was young, I used to, I was like, I want a job where I'm on an airplane all the time and traveling. And I mean, I like traveling, but I don't like the airport and it screws up your groove.
Not for have to.
Yeah, traveling for business is zero fun, man. I had to do a lot of that, and it gets so old.
I mean, fortunately, our work is fun.
Yeah, so when we travel, it's awesome. I mean,
And the other problem is like I never give myself enough time. So like I'm going like the thing I'm doing in Nashville, it's for DeWalt. So it's like I'm going there for 2 days and then I'm coming back, and I'm like my wife's coming with me, but like I'm probably not going to have any time to do anything. I really should have I should have stayed there another day or two. So
yeah, dude, it would be worthwhile, and you should see how much it costs to bump up your leave date. That would be.
I wonder if they would even.
We could have some fun in Nashville. I mean, I can't imagine it'd be more than like $100. I mean, considering you're going for free, even if you had to cover it, that would be that's possibly worthwhile.
The other thing is like that table, man.
Oh, I know, that's true. Now that you've got a project with a deadline, that's
yes,
that kind of changes the leisure time in Nashville aspect.
Yeah. Well, I would have been done with this thing. I was actually planning on having it done by now, but with all the hang-ups and the delays on my last project, it And the issue I have is shop space. So like,
oh well, yeah. Who can build 2 tables or
Exactly.
a large desk and a large table simultaneously? I mean, that's tough.
I already like had to park my motorcycle outside for a week, like
Yeah.
after I got the frame together on this last one. So it just wasn't even an option. So
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much everything that I've been up to lately.
Nice. Well, I have been working on. Just knocked out real quick these tap handles for my Make Magazine video for this month. Heath Knuckles sent me I guess he calls them hybrid blanks. They're a resin, and this one was a maple burl that's stabilized. So really cool blank, this red kind of swirly resin and just beautiful maple burl. And it was like 3 inches by 3 inches by like 5 inches. So I figured it'd be perfect for like 4 tap handles. So cut it into 4 pieces on the bandsaw and then started turning some handles. And man, that stuff made a freaking ungodly mess. It was ridiculous. Like that, that resin just chipped out like crazy. I don't know if I didn't have my RPM high enough on the lathe or whatever, but it was just spraying me with resin chips. And then when I finally got it relatively smooth, then it was just like creating this like resin spaghetti. If you've ever watched like Peter Brown, every time, when he turns resin, it's just like flying all over the place in this like spaghetti looking mass. And it was crazy. I mean, I have red flecks of resin all over my shop, and but I'm really happy with the way the handle turned out. I'd never turned resin before. So it was kind of interesting. Even the burl, since it's stabilized, is almost like, I don't know what percentage resin, but it still turns kind of like it is resin. But it was really fun. I only turned one of the kind of set of 4 I'm going to do. I did find that trying to use a threaded insert in the resin did not work. Like it was a 3/8 -16 thread. I don't know how you say that, but that's like the standard thread for tap handles. And so I drilled like a 1/2 inch hole, like slightly smaller than the threads on the insert. And when I tried to thread it in, it just broke up the resin into these, cracked up little pieces and totally did not work. So I had to drill a hole that was larger than the threaded insert and then just epoxy it into place. And that ended up working. But yeah, so Paul in the live chat, Paul the Wood Knight, if you don't subscribe to him, definitely check him out. He was asking what I was turning with. Yeah, I did turn with carbide tools. So that could have been an issue. He says that he's found that resin doesn't really like carbide tools. And that's all I have as far as turning tools. So that's what I was doing. But yeah, it was pretty fun though. Really happy with the way it turned out. Used like the micro mesh system to kind of sand it up to a ridiculously high grit, like, some multiple thousand grit, and then used this friction finish to really give it a nice shiny look. And it looks awesome. So happy with the way that turned out. Been working on these chairs, man. I know that's been like the everlasting project for me, but mostly just because I've been avoiding them, honestly. But I am finally really, really in the home stretch. So I am almost done. I got all of the joinery cut today for all of the like the backsplat like rails, I guess. And then there are also these kind of decorative vertical rails on the sides of the chairs. Got all that joinery cut with my hollow chisel mortiser. And basically after we finish up here, I'm going to go down and get some of the pieces of the chair in the clamps gluing up. And then tomorrow we'll finish gluing up and then doing a ton of sanding, and I should be ready to apply finish. So, man, I am
That'd be
so
Tuesday's
pumped.
video?
Yeah, that'll be Tuesday's video. So it's going to be an interesting video because, I did create a 3D model for the chair, but I mean, it's not going to be particularly useful to anybody, I don't think. Like, I mean, it would be a good reference, but if you wanted to like rebuild this chair, 90% of the stuff I did was just taking measurements off of the existing chair and kind of like the backrests I traced onto my piece of wood, and same with the leg. That's how I got the shape, was just tracing it onto a piece of plywood, and that became like the router template. So it's going to be a weird one for me because it's going to be like, there will certainly be a how-to aspect to it, but I think it's mostly going to be walking through the process of trying to build something that already exists. And it was super challenging. Definitely the most difficult thing I've built to date. Just so many parts. I mean, each chair has like 10 of these decorative rails on the sides and then 7 of the rails on the backsplat, and just a ton of pieces. And, it's all quarter sawn white oak, and just annoying to work with for the most part, because that stuff just wanted to splinter out on me at every turn. And, it's cut. My hands are all cut up and stained black from the tannins in the oak. And it's been trying, to say the least. So
that's why I love oak.
Yeah, it's been interesting, but I mean, they are looking beautiful, and I cannot wait to put the finish on them. I think they're going to look really, really cool. It's going to make the kind of the quarter sawn figure, the Rayflex kind of pop. And that should be awesome. So hopefully, fingers crossed, I should be spray and finish tomorrow afternoon. So that's kind of insane. These chairs it's been like my albatross hanging on my shoulders for the past 3 months. So really excited about that. So
those chairs are so cool looking.
Thanks, man.
Like, I love the style of those.
Yeah, it's interesting. They're not like, the whole mission style is not like my thing as much, obviously more mid-century modern stuff, Danish modern stuff, but they are cool chairs. I mean, they're really comfy.
They're so much different. I mean, when I think of like mission chairs, I think of like the super like blocky, cumbersome, like almost like caveman looking chairs, that are super heavy. But those are actually kind of like sleek for like mission style. Yeah,
they are. And I mean, it didn't have, I mean, in typical mission fashion, not a ton of angles. I mean, unfortunately, since it's a chair, there are angles just kind of as part of it being, a chair. It just has to have angles. So, I think most mission furniture is probably a little easier than this, just because, the curved backrests and having to do the joinery on a curved piece was really kind of tricky. Lots of layout lines. But once I had that, it was, just lining up with. Yeah. That was really the thing I was most stressed out about. That, and then like the compound miters meeting up with the back leg like splays out at the bottom, and so where the bottom stretcher meets, it's both flaring out to the side of the chair, but also having to meet that angle of the back leg. So it's a compound miter, and having to do that with dominoes was just wrapping my head around everything was the hardest part. It's like once I figured it out in my brain, executing it wasn't that difficult, but it was just breaking down this finished piece into manageable steps. And it was
feel like I need to make a mid-century modern piece now, because you've been in my wheelhouse for a while.
That would be that'd be awesome, man. I'd love to see your take on that. You seem to be able to get walnuts, so that's, I think, step one.
Did you on those, since the joinery on the like the curved backrest support that you're talking about? So did you actually cut? Did you cut the tannins, and then did you even use tannins?
Yes. Yeah. So what's interesting is those the back splat rails are only 3/4 by 3/4. So, traditionally I would have used my domino for like everything, as I typically do, which would have already been a little awkward since, again, it's on a curve, but I think I could have made it work. But since it's only
you're talking about the horizontal?
Oh, I'm talking about the vertical back splat rails.
Okay.
What are you talking about?
I think those are, I think styles are.
Okay, yeah. I keep calling them rails because they're thin and long, but yes, I think they are styles in the, rail and style of a door kind of sense. But yeah,
did you have the tannins first and then round the, okay.
No. So I used the hollow chisel mortiser for the mortises. So that cuts a square hole. So I just cut square tannins on those, and at the table saw with the dado blade, and then used the hollow chisel mortiser to cut the mortises, and it cuts a square hole. So I didn't have to round it over or anything.
Interesting.
That tool, man, I picked it up for like $200 off of Craigslist, and I don't know how I would have done this without it. Honestly, it would have been. I don't think I could have, because I just had a 3/8 inch bit in my hollow chisel mortiser, and that creates a square hole. And basically, I just made sure the curved section, wherever the joint I was cutting, like had it flat against the back of the fence on the hollow chisel mortiser, and it worked out well. And yeah, so the backsplat styles, I guess, really, it was something I worked up in my head to be this like impossible thing that I was going to have to spend forever doing, and I probably knocked it out in like less than an hour. So
that's so common though. I think that's something that's willing to address is like, it's the same thing that I was just talking about with cutting those angles in that 6x6. Like I've never done it before, and like I'm building it up to be this big thing, and I'm kind of like putting it off. Like I should have started this yesterday. Yeah. I should have done it yesterday.
That should be all week. I've been like doing everything I could to not work on these chairs.
Yeah, but because it's something that is like kind of new, and I have a little bit of anxiety on it, like subconsciously I'm trying to find other things to do. And in reality, when you like just do it, you'll get, a lot of the times you'll get it done 3 times faster than you expected. You're like, oh my God, that was easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
well, and I mean, especially since, these pieces are 23 inches long, and the tenons are only 3/8 of an inch square. So even if they're like slightly twisted or out of line, there's enough flex in this long 3/4 inch piece of wood that it just didn't matter. So it just, at the end of the day, it all came together fine, and I'm really, really excited to get it glued up, because that's going to be like officially it's put together. Nothing is wrong. I didn't miss any, mortises, and figuring that halfway through the glue up and that kind of stuff, which I guess kind of leads into our show topic, which is learning to screw up and fix it, and how we've kind of gotten better at handling mistakes during our woodworking journeys. And so I think one of my biggest screw ups, which was kind of why I was thinking of the glue up, was when I was building that organ cabinet. I put together a couple pieces backwards for the bottom of the cabinet. It didn't really matter because they were the same one way or the other, but the domino mortises I had cut were on the wrong side now. So when I went to put the whole thing together, there were no holes where there needed to be holes, and already like half of the base was, glued up and had glue on it and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, I have it on camera, but I am so in such a frantic, like awful state that I don't think it will ever see the light of day. But I was just losing my mind having to drill domino mortises while the glue was drying, and it's like it was crazy.
I think we should do maybe here's what we should do. I'm thinking, because I have a few like outtakes and things that I've recorded that haven't quite made it into my videos.
Yep.
What if we did that as a Patreon or a patron thing? Like if we made a video,
that would be awesome.
That we just all put all of our outtakes in.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be pretty good. I mean, I think a just general like YouTube maker blooper reel would be hilarious, because that every one of us has a ton of footage of us screwing up. I mean, it's just, I know the Making It guys had talked about it, some episodes ago, and I mean, the only issue is a lot of times they're very embarrassing, because I think a side of yourself comes out that, like, I mean, I know I personally, I don't like that side of myself. I'm, losing
that's what
my
makes it
mind.
Funny, though. I mean, the thing, it's not like we're submitting this to like our future employers.
Well, we are our future employers, hopefully.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I think people would, because I think anybody that watches our videos can relate with that.
Yeah, I agree.
It's like I don't care how like even keel or like what your temperament is, you can empathize with the frustrations that come with doing what we do for a living. And I think like I'm imagining like some of the people that I like to watch, I'm imagining them flipping out on camera, and I think it would be hilarious. Like,
Well, the person I always reference is Matt Cremona, because especially when I was watching him build his bandsaw mill, like there were so many moments in his videos where I would have just lost my mind, and he somehow just kept on trucking, like when, especially like I think he was applying the black like weatherproofing paint, and that stuff was just like molasses and dripping everywhere and making this ungodly mess. And he had like the stir stick and it fell out on the ground, and just like all these things and it was freezing cold outside. He had his ridiculous parka on, and just all this crap that would have made me lose it. And he's just being Matt, giggling. It was just like I don't know. So yeah, I think it would be really interesting to see people's responses to their mistakes.
The crazy thing is he's like that in person. When I was up there welding his gantry together, because we built the frame that rolls and the head's mounted onto, and we welded it all up and everything was going great, and we did the final brace welding on it, not thinking that all of the brace welding is on the inside of the arch. So it clamped this whole thing down like 3 inches. An amazing amount of movement, and now it won't move at all with both of us pushing on it, and everything's falling apart, and it's the end of the day, and I'm like freaking out, and he's like, oh yeah, it's okay. I get it.
It's impressive. I have a lot of respect for that dude, because he just keeps his keel. But yeah, he keeps an even keel. I think it would be really cool though to see a video of that. So we could start the start the ball rolling. That would be pretty funny.
I've got one.
It'd be cool because if we could get a lot of the other people to collect and submit their stuff.
Yeah,
it'd be fun. So James, you have a mistake you want to talk about?
Yeah, I've got one that I did just a couple weeks ago. It's actually on the bench. One of the problems with hand tools is planing things to a consistent thickness. And I kind of made the decision on this, rather than planing all of the laminations for the top into a consistent thickness, I would instead just plane them flat and smooth, and just make the assumption that all of the inconsistencies over the course of 24 boards would eventually even out, and it would be somewhere close to meet what it needs to be. And if it was a little off in the end after I clamp it all together, then I would just parallel out the back of the bench with the front of the bench. Unfortunately, I didn't realize it. I had a natural propensity to take more material off of the end of the board closest to me than on the far end. And I clamp it down to find out that one end of the bench is 1 inch shorter front to back than the other end.
Whoa.
And so over the course of 27 boards, I took 1 inch out of the boards on one end.
Wow.
And I didn't notice until there was glue on it, and I was clamping it all together.
Yeah.
And so, what do you do at this point? I have to make sure that the front and back are parallel, because I have to put the legs on and put the stretchers between them. And what do you do? So basically all I did was thickness plane down one edge of it, so that the front edge of the bench, the front board, is running right along it perfectly straight. But on the back, they all start to taper off. And it ends up taking off at one end. I took off 2 boards worth, and at the other end, I didn't take anything off. So
Gotcha.
that if you're looking at it from the end, it looks like the face board, which I then put on the 2 walnut face boards after the main lamination. So it looks like that board is running at an angle because it's cutting through the ends of all these that have been cut off. And in the end, it's not a problem, but it's one of those things that it's going to drive me crazy for the rest of my life.
Oh man!
If
you had just flipped around every other one too, that probably would have solved
your
problem.
Because it probably would have been fat in the middle.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But
man, that's funny. Yeah,
guys, I was thinking, I'm going to be saving time on this, because it probably would have saved me, 2 or 3 hours worth of planing.
Yeah.
rather than actually thicknessing all of them down.
Man.
And it saved me time in the long run, but the bench is gonna. I already have comments because I put the row of dog holes down it, and the row of dog holes is perfectly in line with the sides. But the row of dog holes runs through two different boards as it goes from one end to the other.
Looks crooked.
So I've already had a comment. Why did you put the row of dog holes on an angle?
That's funny, man.
I didn't.
Yeah, that's one time when having power tools is nice. Cause
you don't have to think about parallel.
Yeah, it's automatically parallel when you stick it through the planer. Man, that's funny.
Yeah, if I had a shop, I'd buy a joiner.
Yeah, it's the tool I use on every single project without fail.
I mean, I can get by, obviously I can get by fine with hand planes, but like the other day I had to use my hand planes for something, and like every blade in I just needed to use them for just a minute. I needed to joint one edge of like a 6 foot long board, and it was pretty close, but it wasn't close enough for a nice glue up. So I'm like, I grab my 7 and I'm like, oh, this is dull. I grab my 6. Oh, this needs sharpened. I grab my 5. I'm like, I can probably make this work. I'm like, nope, this one's got a chip out of it. I hit a staple or something. So it was just one of those moments where I'm like, come on. It's just frustrating. So all of my planes need to be sharpened right now, and I just don't feel like taking the time to do that, because I'm not a wizard like James who can just do them freehand. I can get them decent freehand. I mean, I can get them usable, but there's no usable. I feel like it's a horseshoes hand grenade situation. Like
well, especially if you're jointing a board and you get tear out and that's in the seam on especially like a tabletop or something, and then you have a big chunk missing in the seam, and it just, of all the places to have tear out, that's one that's really kind of matters, or doesn't, it just, you can tell, it's not one you're going to be able to get rid of as easily. So that's funny. So what big mistakes have you made in the shop, Zach, and recovered? Like what projects come to mind when you think of that?
That's a good question. I know I make a lot of mistakes. But the good news is I can't think of anything that I've done that wasn't salvageable. Like
I don't think any of us can. That's the kind of redeeming factor, is that the materials we work with are very fixable.
Well, I think there's also a mindset to that. And there's a lot of people who will make a mistake and they'll just throw their hands up and throw the whole piece away.
Yeah, no,
whereas then there's the mindset of, I make a mistake and, well, I guess this is a reason to improvise, to do something different.
Yeah, I mean, there's
it's a design feature.
Yeah.
There's pretty much always a way to save it. Like, I make mistakes all the time, and but none of them come to mind because I've made them work somehow. So I can't think of any catastrophic failure where I had to scrap something and start over. I mean, it's wood. If you screw it up, you can cut it and glue another piece on, or if it's metal, you just weld it back together. I mean, so the other day I thought I made a big mistake. I thought when I was drilling, because I drill for a lot of the times for the tabletops, you guys know those threaded ferrules that are you drill a hole in the wood and you thread it in, and it has threads internal as well, so that you can, so you, I lost the feed there for a second. So that's how I join a lot of my tabletops to metal, is I screw those things into the bottom of them, and then I put the bolt up and it screws into that threaded eyelet. So the other day I thought for a millisecond when I got everything sanded, this is the last step before putting the finish on, and I thought that, oh my God, I drilled these into the wrong side of the top of the table. So, but even in that split second, I had to take it back and make sure, and I did it right. But even in that split second, I was like, oh, I could just put dowels in there, and if I screwed it up, I could just, I could figure out a way to make it work.
Yep, it's always fixable. I mean, I had that moment of terror today when I was cutting for those, the decorative styles on like the side of the chair. Obviously there's an up, like on the bottom stretcher, I have to have the holes on the top of it. And on the top stretcher, I have to have the holes on the bottom. And I had laid out all the lines on the wrong side on the top ones and like was just about to start, cutting the holes. I was like, wait, that should be on the other side. So, the most annoying thing was having to do like all the layout lines again, because that just takes, that takes longer than cutting the joinery half the time. But yeah, that's so easy to do, man. One of my biggest almost errors was when I had just gotten a track saw and I was building that conference table. It was my first commission piece ever, walnut conference table with a steel base. And I had the saw on the wrong side of the track. And so I was going to be trimming the table to length. And so instead of cutting like an inch off, I would have cut like a foot off. And man, that was almost the worst moment of my woodworking career. It was literally on and running, and I was about to start plunging. I'm like, wait, this isn't right. Like this blade is in the wrong place.
How that's like, it's funny, like, because sometimes you're just absent-minded and you do things without thinking about them like that. So just like lining the track up on the wrong side of the, like, how
and the DeWalt tracks are reversible. That's the worst thing. Like on Festival, you can only put it on one side of the track, so it would be kind of hard to screw that up. But like on
how
DeWalt,
dumb would you feel?
Doing dude, because like they had a very, of course it's a custom conference table, so it being a foot short wouldn't have been acceptable. And I would have had to redo the entire top or figure out some sort of way to join them, like splice them together. But yeah, it's a tabletop, so that would have been really sketchy.
You could have like maybe cut down the center and put inserted the end.
Made it a folding conference table or some stupid crap. I don't know, man. It was
it would have been interesting for sure.
It would have been interesting. That was almost a massive error. Yeah, that's well. And then the biggest one was when I grabbed the white spray paint instead of the clear spray paint for the side tables and added the white stripe to the top. But then like that was the design feature.
That was actually isn't there like a ridiculous word for discoveries by accident?
Oh yeah.
It's not onomatopoeia, is it?
No, I think that's
like a noise or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Somebody will chime in, I'm sure. But yeah, discovering things by accidents. That I think on those little end table jack stand things that you did, I think that actually serendipity.
Yeah.
It wasn't near as strange of a word as I thought it would be. Thanks, Boone. But yeah, the stripes on those things totally like
that made the piece.
Yeah.
It was one of those things. And same with the desk I built back then. It was like the first or second welding thing I ever did. I welded one set of the legs backwards. And I was like, well, I guess the legs don't necessarily need to match. And so like one leg, the triangle was like this, and the other one, the triangle was like that. And so they just, opposed each other and almost created this cool design, element. And I just rolled with it because, once I had welded the whole thing, it wasn't like I had just tacked it. I had run a full bead on like, 1/4 inch thick steel tubing, and there was no going back at that point. So, yeah, it was, but that's how you learn.
I did one on my my large dresser. The stretchers at the back, the stretchers along the bottom actually cross each other. So the tenons go all the way through the legs and they cross. So in order to actually make them cross inside the leg, I made one of the stretchers, the tenon is on the top, and one of the stretchers, the tenon is on the bottom. So they're only half-sized tenons that go all the way through. Well, on the back stretcher, I accidentally put the tenon that went all the way through on the top or bottom, I don't remember which it was, and didn't realize it until after the tenon was completely cut. And so I was like, well, it's a through tenon, and so if it doesn't stick through the other side, you're still going to see this gaping hole from the mortise, which is already cut. So what I ended up doing was just hacking the tenon off. So it still went in halfway into the leg, but didn't go all the way through, and then just made a fake tenon to stick on the other side to hide it.
Yeah, I mean,
it's still a tenon. It's still functional. It's just
Well, I had to do that. I totally forgot when I was building my Roubeau. I did not show this on camera. I accidentally cut one of the stretchers because I'm so used to using the domino that when I'm doing mortise and tenon joinery, I think of, floating, and not integral tenons, but floating tenons, and cutting everything to the length it actually needs to be, and not incorporating the lengths of the tenons themselves. So I cut one of the stretchers on the Roubeau to length, and this is already multiple lamination, glue up, and jointing and planing and getting it all squared up. And so I had to use like 4 dominoes per side, because I was worried about it being strong enough. And that was a major doofus moment. But man, that's it happens. It happens.
Yeah, it does. I mean, that's part of the reason that I build thing. I don't like, once I start on the project, I measure every piece. Like I don't draw everything up and then cut out all the pieces and assemble. Like I'll have my SketchUp model done, but then I'll start and kind of like go off of that. So if something is a bit shorter, then it doesn't throw off all of the pieces that I already had cut out, It's kind of off topic, but it's just a thought.
Yeah. That's one of the fun things about hand tools is I tend to go slow enough that I catch it when I'm only like one into the problem. And I get that chance to think about it, but that still means there's one to fix.
Yeah. Well, like with these chairs, I should have built 5 chairs, because realistically, I think the biggest anxiety provoking part of it was knowing that, okay, I had all these legs with like 5 different mortises cut in them at all different weird depths and locations. And if I screwed up one leg by cutting a giant hole where there didn't need to be a giant hole, then I'd have to go back and completely redo that. Whereas if I had like a chair that it didn't matter if it had some errant holes in it, it would have allowed me, I think, to like get through this stuff a lot quicker. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. Well, cool. I think that probably covers that show topic, unless you guys got anything else you want to add.
I don't want to talk about my failures anymore.
Yeah, I know. It's I mean, I think that's that's like the old saying is, I think the biggest part about being a woodworker is knowing how to cover up your mistakes, and that's that's so true. So
I mean, it's the same. It's just life. I mean, like failing is something that if you're a human, you're going to do a lot of it.
Totally. Totally. Especially when you're learning new stuff, which is what we're doing all the time.
Yeah, I mean, not just in like woodworking, but I mean, you can find yourself living in Florida someday and be like, wow,
how did I get here?
What have I done with my life?
You can fix it. I mean, it's just a little bit of an inconvenience for a while until, you figure out how to get out. And
yeah, that's funny. That's funny. Nice. Well, we've got a question from Raven's Path, but I think we'll save that for the after show because we're chugging right along here. We do have a joke of the week again. It's been a couple weeks dormant, but this one's pretty good, from Matt Sola. So thank you, Matt, for sending that in. So what did the 80 grit sandpaper say to the 400 grit? You're so fine. So I thought that was pretty good one. So thank you for that, Matt. Yeah, I think that is one of the better cheesy woodworking jokes we've had. So if you guys want to submit those, just go on the Crafted Podcast website. You got a contact form there. So thanks for that.
I saw a video this week of a dad jokes contest. 2 guys sitting across the table telling dad jokes to each other without trying to laugh.
Nice.
I saw that one this morning. Really good.
That's funny. That's funny. Nice. So what you guys been watching, James? I see you got something.
Black Bear Forge. He just recently, he's had a channel for a while, but he's just recently started putting out more content and actually making it a priority. And he is one of my favorite blacksmiths. He makes a lot of hand tools, He also makes traditional hinges and hardware, all blacksmith wrought. Beautiful, beautiful work. But the cool thing about the channel now is he's actually kind of changing it over. It used to be kind of advertisement for what he was doing, and now it is more, let me show you what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. And so he's starting with a lot of the basics and training for blacksmithing, and really goes into detail about a lot of the intricacies of it. And I love it. I'm having a lot of fun with it so far.
Yeah, that's awesome. I just subscribed, so that's I think I met him at WIA last year, and his stuff is awesome. So
Yeah,
I always love watching
the
blacksmithing.
coolest hold fast that have ever been made on Earth.
Yeah, those things are awesome. So, what about you, Zach?
So it's some different mediums this week. So I started watching Twin Peaks the other night. So I've heard people talking about it for a long time. And
You've never seen Twin Peaks before,
no.
like any of them? Oh,
No.
dude, did you start from like episode 1, season 1?
I just started. We just watched episode 1 last night, and I like where it's going.
You are in for, man, David Lynch, his weirdness. That show gets real weird.
The comedy, like the weird comedy in it is like it's so strange. But
I got on a heavy David Lynch kick after watching that, and then Blue Velvet and Eraserhead, which is the weirdest movie I think I've ever seen in my life.
He did Mulholland Drive too, didn't he?
Yep.
That was a weird one.
He's a weird guy. I don't think he's ever made anything that's not weird, because Twin Peaks gets super weird, and they just, I guess, have a new season now, which I need to go watch. It's just they've kind of brought it back. I think it's on Showtime. Yeah, it's outstanding. The movie is pretty good. Firewalk with Me.
You mean the
Twin Peaks
series?
movie?
Oh, there's a movie on it?
Yeah, it's called Firewalk with Me. I got pretty heavy into Twin Peaks for a while, but it's you're in for, dude. You haven't even begun to get into the crazy weirdness of Twin Peaks. It's you'll enjoy it.
It's just, I just love the humor that I've seen in it. It's so like non-typical. Like it's,
so campy and weird.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So that, and so I don't really play video games or anything, but I somehow came across Civilization 6. I mean, when I was young, I used to play a game called Age of the Empires. It's like
the classic. Love that game.
Yeah. But I started playing Civilization 6, and it's ruining my life. I need to beat it one time, and then I can get my life together. But it's crazy. It's one of those games that it takes all day. Like you'll start at 6 in the morning, and be like, oh, I'm just going to play it an hour or two and drink some coffee. And before you know, it's like 4 PM, and you can't quit. It's not healthy. It's
trying to broker a treaty with Gandhi and
have you played it?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's I can't think of any other game that has sucked so much productivity from my life.
There's a reason I don't put any games on my phone or computer. I get too addicted.
World of Warcraft did that for me in college. It was the least productive 2 weeks of my life until my wife, then girlfriend, basically forced me to quit, and that was a very good thing because it was terribly unhealthy.
Yeah,
so that's funny. Nice. Cool. Well, I've got a couple picks this week. One is this channel. It's funny because Paul from the Wood Knight mentioned this concept of wabi sabi in the live chat, and there's a channel called Wabi Sabi, and it's this guy and his girlfriend. They bought an old farmhouse. I don't know where they're located. I think they're in Canada, but super rural. But they're basically just renovating this 100-year-old barn or farmhouse, one room at a time, and just really well done. Really, kind of cute couple, funny, and just DIYing the heck out of it. So saw them posted on Reddit a couple of days ago, and I think they have 7 or 8 episodes of them kind of updating this farmhouse, and just really cool stuff that I very much enjoy watching, but do not have much interest in doing myself. So it's lots of stripping paint and chipping away old junk off of brick chimneys and just lots of disgusting messy stuff. But Yeah, cool stuff there. Also, Bernie Solo, who I don't know if you guys are familiar with his channel, Works by Solo. Yeah, dude. That dude is criminally underviewed. So that lamp he just built, the mid-century modern concrete
That's not
lamp.
the concrete, yeah.
Dude, that lamp is amazing.
Ridiculous.
It's got like 500 views. I'm like, the video is incredibly well produced. Awesome project. I mean, just incredibly well executed. And so I think him and I might try to work on a project together because he's just so good at the whole 3D modeling side, and it's something I'd like to get more into. And like I just posted this mid-century modern like end table / magazine rack on my Instagram that I saw the other day. Really cool idea. They're kind of like combined, so the end table has a hole in the top where you can kind of slide magazines down in. Really cool concept, but it would be kind of perfect for CNC because it's a big kind of oval with another kind of oval inside of it, and could do some cool stuff with it. But
that kind of reminds me of the magazine rack. So something else I've been digging into lately is while I was traveling a little bit ago, I found a popular, what is it? It's like Home and Garden or something like that from 1957 magazine, and it's in like great condition. And it's so interesting just flipping through the pages and like just seeing how marketing was, like how graphics were, like how wording was, like the products. And like, I mean, the fact that washing machines weren't called washing machines, they were just called automatics. Like that's how old it is. It's weird. But what's crazy about it is like, I mean, the advertisements for tools, and I mean, it's Home and Garden, but still, it's like, it shows you like fairly, like there was a thing I read last night. It was about like 8 types of ways to join wood together. And it had like detailed pictures of like bridle joints and dovetails. And it's like, this isn't even a woodworking book. This is just like a general.
Yeah.
So it's crazy how much I feel like how much more your average person was capable of doing with their hands, 70 years ago.
I remember reading a magazine from the 50s that they were talking about building a piece of furniture, and the writer actually was asking forgiveness from the readers that he would just decide to flatten it with a hand plane rather than bringing out a power planer for it.
How the times have changed.
It's funny. That is funny. Cool. Well, I guess let's finish it up with favorite tool of the week. James, I see you got something.
Oh yeah, Bad Axe hand saws, which if you're anything into hand tools, Bad Axe, you know about them. They're out of La Crosse, Wisconsin, and they make a gorgeous back saws. But they just came out with a hand saw. And for those of you who don't know what it is, a hand saw is a panel saw that is longer than about 26 inches. And it's the big, large hand saw. And there's one other company that makes them, but they're in Europe. And so this is really the only other company in the world that makes traditional hand saws now. And they are absolutely gorgeous. And I'm so looking forward to getting my hands on one. This is a big thing in the hand tool world right now. They just announced it yesterday. So,
yeah, I heard Shannon talking about it on Wood Talk, and that thing looks awesome. It just looks like your old traditional. When you think of a handsaw, like an old saw, that's exactly what I think of, but it's just a much more updated version.
Well, that, and they're also following the foregrip hand, so it has the thumb hole for the second hand, and it's a beast of a saw. Nice. Really gorgeous.
That's awesome, man. That not cheap, dude. That's a spindy saw.
Well, when you see they actually, there's a back bevel on them, so the back of the saw plate is thinner than the plate by the teeth. So they're actually ground at a slight angle to make them thinner so they don't bind up.
Gotcha.
Which that's just one of the many things you have to do to make a traditional handsaw. And they take a ton to build, but holy cow. Yeah, they're cool.
That's awesome. Zach, what about you, man?
So since I mentioned them earlier in the podcast and I use them quite a bit, I'm going to go with the brass threaded inserts. So yeah, if anybody didn't catch it earlier, it's just pretty much it has threads on the outside so that you can thread it into wood once you drill a hole. And it also has threads on the inside so you can put it into whatever and then attach it from the inside threads. They're really cheap. You can get a pack of 25 for like $8. And the two that I use are the 1/4 by 20 and the 3/8 by 16, depending on what you're working with. But they're just super handy to have around. If you have them in your shop, you will use them eventually.
Yeah, that's what I used for the tap handles, was a 3/8 by 16 one. But for some reason would not thread into the resin. I just broke both the resin and the insert. So in case you're trying to do that ever.
Before I knew those existed, like I did a custom tap handle for somebody, and I just got 2 nuts, threaded them onto a rod and welded them together and then ground it smooth. It worked, but
yeah, it was really, I mean, I just ended up drilling an oversized hole and epoxying it into place, and threaded a nut in there so the epoxy didn't get into the threads, and worked great. But I wish, because threading those threaded inserts in is a lot easier. Have you tried? I mean, I know Mark from Wood Whisperer just came out with these, taps designed for wood, but have you ever tried tapping the wood itself?
Mm-mm.
It's pretty amazing the strength that threading into wood has. I mean, Andy Klein, who I guess co-developed the thread taps with Mark, they did some testing and pretty awesome stuff. I mean, I've really, because
I guess
threaded inserts,
those brass inserts, I mean, you are actually threading the outer threads into the wood.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and those things are, I mean, since they're brass, they will break on you like occasionally. Like when I'm threading them in, it has like almost like a flathead screw insert looking thing on the ends of them that you can use a little tool to thread them in with. And sometimes those little
here's my understanding of this. The things that you would think you would use a screwdriver to insert those with, that actually goes down into the wood, and it actually. So
I have a little.
It goes in backwards, and then here's how I do it. I just have a bolt or like a section of thread, and I screw 2 nuts on it, and then just use a socket. So the 2 nuts butt up again. Yeah, it's a jam nut, and then you use that to turn it in. Because one of my first videos, I did it that way, where like I had the flathead looking thing up top, and I got like 20 comments like, yeah, it's really poor. I mean, it's really not what you would think. You have to flip it upside down and actually.
They make a tool that drives them in with that.
Well, that's what I have.
They go in so much easier the other way.
Yeah, so I got that tool from McMaster Carr, and when I was trying to thread it into the resin, obviously it was just way too difficult. So they would have broken either way. But I've just been very impressed with tapping directly into wood because it's just one less step. It's just easy, and they're never crooked, and like it's they can't break, obviously. So
well, the shearing strength of a hardwood is rather phenomenal. So it's not something that's going to pull out under any normal stress.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that's what I used on the river table, and that's what I used for those coffee tables I built for my parents. So crazy strong. So my pick of the week is, I mean, it's not really a tool, but it's something you use in your shop all the time. It's those 3M work tunes, which I actually bought while you guys were up here.
And I bought a pair as soon as I got home.
Yeah, dude, Bluetooth, noise, reducing whatever headphones. And they're comfortable. I mean, they're huge, but they're comfortable, and they sound good, and the battery life lasts like forever. And man, I've been crushing some podcasts the last couple of days. It's been really good. So
yeah, those are awesome. I second those.
Yeah, for sure.
I like it. They did design them like after like the early 90s running like radio headphones that are just gigantic with an antenna off the side.
They're enormous. I've considered cutting the antenna off because I will never listen to the radio with them, and the antenna just gets in the way sometimes. But I have not done that yet. Cool. Well, I guess that'll do it for this week. Thanks to everybody for listening. Paul in the live chat just on the note of headphones. He mentioned IsoTunes, which is something I haven't used yet, but I plan on it. So that seems to be a good brand for sure. A lot lower profile than the 3M. So so anyway, thanks to everybody for listening. Live chat people, stick around for the after show. If you guys listening on the feed want to hear the after show, you can check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/craftedpodcast. It is, I think, $5 a month to get the weekly after show, and that really helps to support the show. We don't do any advertising or anything on the show, so Patreon is our main means of support. So thanks again, guys, and until next week, happy building.
See ya.
Take care.
All right, what is that ungodly noise? Zach? Good Lord, my friend. This is an audio show. I don't know if you know, but that's very loud.
I was just doing that the last couple seconds, though, right?
Yeah. All right, after show. Let's get into the after party. So we had a question from the live chat. It's pretty specific. I think, James, you'll probably have a good answer to this, but Raven's Path. So he says he just got this really cool new grooving plane, I guess, from James, and wants a good beginning project for it. So any suggestions?
See, I always like making boxes with grooves. And so every size, every piece of the box, so if you take all 6 sides of a box and you start with the 2 ends and you make those the size that they need to be, plus about a 1/4 inch on all 4 sides. And that 1/4 inch is there to allow to fit into a groove. So then you take the next 2 sides of the box and you extend that. It's the same height as the first 2 sides, but you extend it a 1/2 inch either end. And with that 1/2 inch, you make a 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch deep groove. That's a 1/4 inch inset from either end. And so you're making a groove that then captures the 2 ends that you created earlier. And then you can make a top and bottom that have matching grooves for those that you just made. And so it's a very simple design for a box, extremely strong. But with a grooving plane, you can make it in a matter of minutes. It's a fun way to kind of play with it. And you get to play with cross grain and length grain, running with the grain. So that's one of my favorite quick projects with a grooving plane. But really, that particular one, just so you guys know, he has a grooving plane that has a 1/4 inch cutter that cuts a 1/4 inch deep and a 1/4 inch in from the side. And having one of those on hand is one of the most amazing things, because even if you are a power tool user, having one of those ready to go is phenomenal for anytime you're making drawers. So if you want to make a groove in the bottom of a drawer that you put a panel in, so if you're putting like a 1/4 inch panel, and most of the time you're going to be putting a 1/4 inch panel into a 1/4 inch groove, it's a very standard groove to make. And even if you're a power tool user, if you just need to make a couple grooves, it is so much faster than the hand tool than setting up a router, getting everything ready and running them through.
Yeah.
You can make the groove in a matter of a couple moments and be done with it and move on.
And
it's so much fun.
Yeah. Now that's a plane that I've kind of been wanting to add to this table. That and like a plane, like a shoulder plane. I think, even for a mostly power tool guy, I think those would both definitely come in handy.
Dude, you should make one. You can make one in like an hour and a half.
Maybe I'll have to do that. That could be fun.
It's a great use for an old chisel.
Yeah, that's interesting. Maybe I'll have to do that. That might be a good Make Magazine video. Cool. Any other project ideas, Zach? Have you used a grooving plane for any projects?
I used it on what? Oh, sorry. I need.
Hey, fidget boy.
Yeah.
Get yourself a spinner.
Yeah. Is that different from a plow plane?
A plow plane can be a grooving plane.
Okay. Well, I've done a few things with my plow plane. I think I used it as a grooving plane. The torched alder something table that I did on my channel. I joined 2 pieces of, that was the first time I ever used it, and I built the tabletop out of alder and just grooved both sides and then cut out
Spline.
Yeah, cut out a spline, and I don't need to explain the rest of it because it's obvious. But yeah, so I used it for that, and yeah, it was successful. So
yeah, it seems like it'd be a
Good
very
story.
good way to create alignment for gluing up any sort of panels or anything like that. So
Yeah.
and it's so much fun to. I don't know why. Like I've said it before, but like running a groove down like the edge of a board is just so satisfying.
Well,
Like it's just
the shavings on those things are really
Oh,
just awesome. Like just long, stringy curls. I mean, you could do some sort of tongue and groove project. Make
yeah.
a box with a tongue
Yeah.
and groove lid, and
Well, the
Well,
other
yes.
thing you can do with that, with a grooving plane, is put a 1/4-inch piece of wood into the groove of the grooving plane, and you now have a 1/4-inch shoulder plane. And so you can cut either side of a 3/4-inch board and create a tongue.
there we go.
Yeah, it's just I think it's because it's just super positive. Like you get a super
Mhm.
you use it until it stops. Like it's the
Yeah.
not positive reinforcement, but it's like a very like when it's done. It's like you set it. It's kind of like a power tool in the fact that like you get everything set up the way you want it, and then you just do it. And when it's done, it's exactly how it should be. So
Yeah, interesting.
It's a hard one to mess up too. It's just so it's simple, it's satisfying, but yet it's still hands-on and feels good.
Yeah, I might have to make one of those. That actually sounds pretty fun. I've got some pieces of Purple Heart and Babinga left over from my last couple builds that could make a very sexy little grooving plane. I think that would be that'd be nice.
Yeah, the Purple Heart would be fantastic for that.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, thanks to live listeners for sticking around for the after party. Thank you to all of our Patreon supporters for checking in. But I guess until next week, happy building.
See ya.
see you guys later.